Hi, this is Jamie from Stillmeyer Games, and today I'm going to talk about some tales from production in regards to the Viticulture World Cooperative Expansion. This is an expansion that has been in the works for quite some time now, and we went into production in late 2021, maybe kind of between Q3 and Q4 of 2021, and we recently received the final product, which looks like this. So this is the final box for the Viticulture World Cooperative Expansion. I'm going to jump around today. I'm just going to kind of unravel some things that we went through during the design and development and production process, mostly as they relate to the components, but also kind of tying back to production. So where should we start? Let's start with, we'll jump around in the timeline a little bit. So here's my PPC, my pre-production copy of Viticulture World, which looks so similar to the final copy that I always mark it with stickers. Sticky notes to say PPC to remind me of what it is. This is kind of a copy of the game that looks like the final game, but usually it doesn't have wooden components in it. We have separate samples for those, and it's early enough in the process that we can still change things if we really need to. And so this was the stage of the process where we were really focusing on the insert, and we went through a bunch of different iterations of the insert. This version is actually fairly similar to what the final version ended up looking like. So you can see the box here is not all that deep because we didn't want to make the box deeper than it needed to be, but we still wanted to be able to separate all of the decks of cards because there are 7 different continents that you play through in Viticulture World. You're kind of, instead of sticking to Tuscany, you inhabit another continent and you cooperatively start and create wineries and vineyards in that continent. So we have 7 different continents. There's also the Buratino solo mode up here, but I really wanted to separate these decks. I didn't want to just put them in a big pile or give them each their own bag, and so we kind of created a slanted insert here where you can kind of see that each card deck slides under the previous card deck a little bit in this insert. We also needed room for the innovation tiles, the 2 types of innovation tiles, and the cards down here. Let me talk about those a little bit here, both the tiles and the cards. Let's start with the tiles. So these are innovation tiles that upgrade the board itself. So they make the board better. So it's a cooperative expansion, so you're making the board better for everyone who's playing. There are the oval tiles that upgrade the action spaces, and then there are the rectangular tiles that upgrade the actions themselves. And these are specific. The oval tiles, you can choose any action to go on. The rectangular tiles go on a specific action. One of the challenges here for the artist was getting the art to align very precisely and to add usually they're pretty subtle changes. I think we ended up doing it. Subtle changes to the art to show that a thing had been upgraded while still making the art seamless with the other elements of the board. So that was an interesting challenge for artist Andrew Bosley. One of the things we debated for these tiles, because I guess I should explain the core mechanism, but every round of the game, every year of the game, at the beginning of the year, you reveal 2 rectangular tiles and 2 oval tiles. And those are the tiles that are available to buy throughout that year. You do not refill them during the year if you create one of those tiles. So if I put one of the 2 rectangular innovation tiles on the board using the innovate action, I do not immediately replace that tile. They only refill at the beginning of the next year. This is to prevent basically it's a balancing thing to prevent someone or prevent a group from innovating a lot early by refilling those tiles and then innovating again and again and again using grande workers and then not doing it much later in the game. We want it to happen. We want it to be a valid choice throughout the game. And so we debated including a bag for either 2 separate bags for both tiles or 1 bag for both tiles, and you're pulling the tiles out of the bag. But in the end, we realized that it didn't really need that complicated. It didn't need a bag that you could put out. That overly complicated it, and the bag kind of would have, or the multiple bags in particular, would have taken up a lot of space in the insert. So these tiles are not difficult to shuffle. You shuffle them up and you put them on the board, or you put them next to the board at the beginning of the game. So one of those decisions, like if it was something where you're constantly pulling out of the bag, or if it was really difficult to shuffle, or there were really, really small tokens, we might have considered a bag for it in the end, but we decided a bag wasn't the right fit for it. One of the other things we did, this is a clever innovation from the designers, I thought, so one of my kind of pet peeves about some games, some expansions, including probably some from some of our games, are games where during the setup process, depending on like the combination of expansions you're playing with, you have to remove certain cards, or even player count. You have to remove certain cards from the deck and then shuffle the deck back in. It makes setup strenuous for me. I don't enjoy that aspect of setup. And so in games like Tapestry, we say we have include a little icon, and we say, okay, if you draw this card as it relates to the arts track, and you're not actually playing with the arts track this game, then you can discard that card and draw again. So we did something similar for Viticulture World, but we made it even more obvious. So basically, we added duplicate cards. So these are cards that already exist in the exact same form, but with white borders in the original Viticulture game. And these are cards that are not compatible with the cooperative version. And so what we ask people to do when they initially set up Viticulture World for the very first time, and only the first time, is that they find these cards that are in their decks of Viticulture cards, and they replace those cards with these black bordered versions of the cards. And what this means is, whenever during a game of Viticulture World you draw a black bordered card, you know it's right away, it's a clear signal that this is not a cooperative compatible card, and you are to discard it and redraw right away. And so you never have to, at the beginning of each game, you never have to separate the cards. It's just a one-time switch where you put these cards in, and they easily signal that they are not compatible. Let's jump over. Let me see what else we have here. So I had a few components that I skipped. I actually didn't get to the worker hats. So let me talk about those real quick. Oh, actually, I do have one other thing that I can uncover while I'm here, which is this is one of the first new products we made that have biodegradable bags. These bags happen to be compostable, but not all biodegradable bags are also compostable. It's kind of biodegradable is the big category, compostable is a smaller category. But these are high quality plastic bags that will last for a long time if you keep them in your game. But they will, unlike plastic, they will biodegrade. If you put them in the compost pile and in the landfill, they will biodegrade over time. So we included a few of those bags in Viticulture World. So I am opening up here. I'll bring it onto camera a little bit more. I'm going to talk about the wine crate more in a second, but I have my final components for Viticulture World in the wine crate box here. Actually, and that reminds me, I need to go back and forth a little bit here. So one of the things that you may have noticed in the pre-production copy is, and maybe I'll just pull it out of here if I have it easily accessible, is that the board is bigger than the Viticulture board. Specifically, it is taller than the Viticulture board. This is because I did not restrict the designers in terms of the size of the board. I wanted them to make the best expansion possible. And so this is the board in Viticulture World. And as you can see, the board, I don't know if you can really tell here because I'm not comparing it to the original board, but it is bigger than the original. It is taller than the original Viticulture board, notably because of the number of action spaces. There are 4 actions stacked on top of one another instead of 3. And so the board is taller. And part of this is very specifically by design because there are innovation tiles, oval tiles, that point up or down or to the left or the right at other oval innovation tiles. So you might have an oval innovation tile that points to the right here. You put that tile here because, say, you've already upgraded this spot with an even better innovation tile. This tile copies that one. So there needed to be a structure and order and columns and rows to this board. And the result, unfortunately, is that this board ended up too big to fit into the Viticulture box, the original Viticulture box. And so we designed the expansion box around obviously fitting this board. So the expansion box, while it is the same height, this way, same height, it is not the same height this way, not the same width, I guess. And that's not ideal. Like ideally, this board would have fit into the core game, but it's one of those things where we could restrict the design to make everything fit in the box, or we could just have the best expansion possible, which is always my goal when I make an expansion. But as part of that, so part of that is I think some people will buy Viticulture World and they'll put this on their shelf next to Viticulture. That is totally fine. I know it's tough to have separate 2 separate boxes, but really not even with the board, but also the cards themselves, all this stuff would not fit into the Viticulture box very well. And especially if you have previous expansions and even the original Tuscany expansion that was on Kickstarter. And so that's why we created the wine crate box here. And before I delve too deep into the wine crate box, I did want to talk about the one other component that I haven't mentioned, and that is these hats right here. So we tried out different versions of these hats. We tried out plastic hats, we tried out silicone hats, and we tried out finally rubber hats. These are natural rubber hats. They're not synthetic, they're natural rubber. And you can see they have a nice bend here. They pop onto the worker heads. I don't have a worker here handy to show you, but they pop onto the heads really well. And you put these on your workers at the beginning of the game. You start out the game with a full array of workers in Viticulture World. 1 grande worker, and then 4 seasonal workers. 2 of them, which have yellow summer hats on them. They're summer workers. And 2 of them with the blue winter hats. And when you train a worker in Viticulture World, instead of gaining a new worker, instead you pop off their hat and they become a trained worker that you can use in any season, and they are allowed to gain bonuses from action spaces at that point. So that was kind of a fun process to go through and get these hats right, to find a way for them to really pop on and pop off easily, but such that you could lift up a hat and lift up the worker with it, rather than having the worker drop off the hat after you try to pick it up. So anyway, on to the wine crate box here. So this is the wine crate right here. This is the top half of it. I'll show you what the bottom half looks like down here. This is a box designed to hold all viticulture components. And this was an interesting design challenge because we've had 3 different editions of Viticulture, with the one that I call Viticulture now is Viticulture Essential, which came out in 2015. We have Tuscany Essential, more visitors, Rhine Valley, we have metal coins, there are third-party accessories, there's Viticulture World that just entered the picture, and there was one of our big early Kickstarters in 2014 was for Tuscany, which was kind of a bigger version of Tuscany Essential. It eventually became Tuscany Essential, but we had, I think there were like 11 different expansion modules in the original Tuscany. Many of them ended up not being used by many people, and that's why we slimmed it down to Tuscany Essential for a long-run product. But there are things in that expansion that I wanted to be able to fit in this box if people had those things. And they include like the cow meeples you can find over here. So we have this tray right here, which holds the cow meeples. It holds, in the original Tuscany, there were field tiles instead of field cards. So I have them in this compartment too. So these are field tiles here. There are cards from Arboriculture and Formaggio here. There's a little slot for them. And there are the Mafia expansion, which no one ever played, and the patronage expansion here, right here. So all these different cards are intended to fit into this slot. However, you can't, if you don't have all that original Tuscany stuff, and don't worry, you don't need it. It's stuff that really I don't think many people played with. I would say Formaggio is the one module that some people do actively pursue, and there is a way to get it via print and play. But if you don't have all that stuff, you can still put some of your viticulture stuff in this insert if you want, because the insert is fairly modular. I already lifted off the Viticulture World portion of it, which does fit into this box. And then down here, let me see if I can point the camera down so you can see this a little better. Point the camera. So it's going to get shaky for a second there. There we go. So you can see that a little bit better. So I have stacks of the boards here. And actually, I'm going to put it back in order now. So I have the various boards and mats. I have the viticulture itself, the various boards below that, and then I have the Viticulture World board even below that, and you can see it does fit in here. And we always seek some thumb room here so you can lift out boards. So we didn't want it to go fully edge to edge. And then the base, we have what is now mostly the new Viticulture insert. So the new Viticulture insert is a three-part insert. So there's a big L insert, and there are 2 of these scoopable trays here that hold player components for 3 different players. And we have 2 of them down here. You can scoop out those components. We spent a lot of time getting this tray right, and even, I don't know if you can see it, but right here is a kind of a finger hole so that you can easily lift out this tray through that little finger hole. This tray over here, so this is one that was also largely designed for the original Tuscany, the Kickstarter version of Tuscany, because this holds all of the special workers, along with a few other components, but mostly it's special workers. If you have Tuscany Essential, you are familiar with the special workers. But in Tuscany Essential, we realized that we don't need a different meeple for every worker type. In fact, that isn't sustainable in case we want to make promos, and we did eventually make a promo of different worker types. And so in Tuscany Essential, we gave each player 2 meeples, and then we have 2 meeples that you just place on the special worker cards to designate that this meeple means this and this meeple means that. But if you have all those original meeples, they fit into this compartment here. And now there are also special card slots for the big cards. They can stand vertically for the red and blue cards, the field cards, and Automa cards over here. And let's see if I can mention that. No, I don't have that handy. Also over here, the structure mats. I don't know if you can see. Yeah, there you go. So the structure mats, we found that they could fit really nicely just by happenstance into this compartment over here, right on top of the cards. And we included enough room to fit sleeved cards, of course, those in all directions down here. These are the small cards in the game. But if for some reason you have sleeves that are really, really thick and they don't fit, that's what this other modular compartment is for. You can put sleeve cards in there as well. I'm mostly just explaining like what we ended up with here. This is less tales from production and more what the final product is. But we went through lots of different versions of this insert to get here. In fact, I have some diagrams here showing like my initial sketches for what I thought might work for this, and then kind of a revised sketch of where I saw the various inserts going. It was really an interesting and tricky puzzle to get everything to fit in a box that wasn't too big. Like, we wanted a big box that could hold all viticulture stuff, but we didn't want it so big that you would regret putting it into a bag and taking it to a game night or a convention or an event. So that was an interesting challenge to get that to work for this box. And also, you can actually see I have an earlier prototype of the box. In this version of the box, we didn't have, you can see the sticky notes over here. We didn't have certain things on these 2 sides of the box, so we didn't have a logo. I wanted basically a vertical side of the box, in case people wanted to keep this on their shelf vertically. And that is where we ended up. Let's see if I can find it on here. So here's half of it. Here's that icon on this half, and you can see it. The other half is right down there. So that's something we added fairly late in the process. Trying to think if there are any other tales from production. So a few things happened very late in the process that I should mention briefly. One is that in February, I got the first advanced copy of Viticulture World. And Megan and I played through the introductory continent, the Green Gully continent of the game. And we found it was harder than I remember during the playtesting process. And I kind of had a moment where I was like, this is meant to be an introductory continent. This is meant to kind of really ease people into the game and give them a really good chance of winning their first game of Viticulture World. Each continent has different difficulty levels. So there's the introductory continent, they're easy, they're medium, there's one hard continent. And so we decided kind of at the last minute to add a promo pack that we're calling the first game continent. That is essentially an easier version of the Green Gully continent. It's just slightly easier cards, and it even adds a card that says, so you can add this to any continent, and it gives you a 7th year in the game if you really, really want it. So if you finish your 6th year, this game ends after 6 years. You finish your 6th year and you're really, really close to winning, but not quite, and you just want to finish up and try to see if you can win in the 7th year, you can use this card. But yeah, we just wanted to have people to have a really good experience with their first game of Viticulture World, and so with all orders, Webster orders, you'll get the first game continent. Also, and this is tough for me to summarize in a quick nature, but you can see the blog post on our website about an issue that some of my favorite content creators, Thinker Themer, I'm wearing their shirt right now, they noted an issue regarding the South America continent in the game and 2 conquistadors that we included with a pretty heavy disclaimer because these conquistadors did have a pretty big impact on winemaking in South America, but they also did many terrible things. And so at the time, when we were putting together the game, I thought it would be enough to put a disclaimer, kind of saying this is what happened in history, but these were terrible people, basically. But that was a mistake. I should have just removed them. Like, there's no need to have these terrible people in the game itself. And Maggie and Amy at Think of Themer brought this to my attention after they received their advanced copy of the game. And after a good conversation with them and some good conversations with our internal team, we decided to replace those two people with other people who, again, everyone in history, including ourselves, are nuanced. We have good and bad parts to ourselves, but there are the conquistadors of the world, and there are a lot of, like everyone else, pretty much, that do good and bad things, but not on that level. And so we included two other people in the game that we think added a pretty positive contribution to. Not just we think that, but we did a lot of research to make sure these were the right people to fit into the game. And so we switched out these conquistadors with two other people. However, that it isn't in the expansion itself. That is an extra pack that we are including with every copy of the expansion, whether you buy it directly from us or from a retailer, and in all localized copies of the game too, or separate from them, but along with them. So that I don't have that to show you yet. I approved the NPC for that expansion pack digitally rather than just to speed things along, but that will come with every copy of the game too. So if you order from us, you'll get the first game continent promo pack, and you'll get the replacement cards for those conquistadors, and if you buy the expansion from a retailer, you will get just the replacement cards. So yeah, it was an interesting, wild journey. Usually the production journey for a game or an expansion ends when we go to production. But this journey continued well past that with these two packs of cards that we created after the expansion was essentially complete. So that fairly unique thing to do, definitely not an ideal thing to do. These were things that I wish we had, I wish that I had caught, and not just caught, but I wish I had implemented the right solution for earlier in the process rather than the wrong solution. But I don't know. I live and learn, and hopefully people will still very much enjoy this cooperative expansion as much as I have, because I think Mihir and Francesco, the designers, did a wonderful job with it. If you have any questions about production and all these different things that I've unpacked today, please let me know in the comments below. I'm happy to talk more about it there. Thanks.